Advanced Auto Parts has updated their DieHard 90-tooth Comfort Grip Ratchet. I went ahead and picked up one of the new ones so we could take a look at it, compare it to some other ratchets, and see if it earns a spot in the toolbox. Stick around to find out. When I get under my car to work on it, I want to make sure that the ratchet I grab is going to have everything I need. It's got to feel good in my hand, it's got to be the right length, the back drag needs to be decent, and it's got to be strong enough. Sometimes I want a flex head, sometimes I don't. This is why I like to have a lot of ratchets to choose from, because you guys know, depending on the job, these factors can change. I've recently been talking about the Pittsburgh ratchet, and I love my Icon and gear wrench ratchets, but there is a ratchet I haven't tried yet. Some of you guys have been talking about this DieHard ratchet. This is a 3/8 drive. It's got 90 teeth. It looks nice and it feels nice. I'm going to compare it head to head with these other ratchets, so let's check it out. This DieHard ratchet comes in at $36.99. If you buy it online, they have a promo code right now, ready to go, and you'll get 15% off if you spend $35 or more, or 20% off if you spend $100 or more. So since this one is $36.99, you're automatically able to get the 15% off with this. So something to think about there. As far as price goes, this is just a little bit more than the Pittsburgh, which is the lowest on the list, which comes out to $32.99. And then we have the Icon, $69.99, followed by gear wrench at the most expensive at $96.24. And that's the price that's going for on Amazon, so you might be able to find this at a different price point somewhere else. I did not check gear wrench's website, but I would assume it would be more expensive there, but perhaps it's not. Let's go ahead and open this up. The mechanism feels all right. Honestly, it feels like it has a little bit of back drag here. In comparison to the Pittsburgh has way less back drag for sure. But my first impressions of this ratchet are not bad. I'm wondering what the older version was like, because everyone that has been recommending the DieHard ratchet, I'm pretty sure they're talking about the older one. But unfortunately, the store I went to didn't have any of the older ones in stock. I might look around and see if I could find any, because when I went to the store, I wasn't even aware that they had an older versus a newer one. So if I can find one, I will let y'all know, and we might do another video on this, so we'll see. One thing I do like about this one is that it's not as long as the others. It's only a little bit shorter, but if you take a look here, it's going to be a little bit shorter than the Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh and the Icon are pretty much the same length. As I said before, it's got 90 teeth. It does have the highest amount of teeth because the gear wrench is the 120 XP, and this technically has 60 teeth, but it's got 2 paws, so you've got twice as many positions when you're ratcheting. And then the Icon comes in at 80 teeth, and then the Pittsburgh has 72 teeth. So that will make a difference when you're talking about arc swing. And sometimes it can make a difference in strength of the ratchet itself too. All 4 of these ratchets have a warranty. The Icon and the Pittsburgh have a lifetime warranty at Harbor Freight. And the DieHard has a lifetime warranty at Advanced Auto Parts. So you can just take this in and get a replacement if something ever happens to it, much like the Icon and the Pittsburgh. So I do like that about it. The gear wrench, I've heard, is a little bit harder to warranty out. You have to do it online. So I can understand why that one may not be as appealing to people. But the warranty on these 3 is pretty good. I can't deny that. The DieHard 90-tooth ratchet comes in different lengths and sizes as well. It's got a 1/4 inch, a 3/8, and a 1/2 inch. I picked up the 3/8 just because I use 3/8 ratchets the most. So I felt like this one would come in handy the most for me. But if your needs are different, you'd always have that option. Something that people always complain about with the Pittsburgh ratchets is that their selector switch is backwards. So that is something that I was looking at with this DieHard. It is not backwards. So it goes in the same direction as the Icon does. So you've got both selectors facing this way, and they're both going to turn the same. So that is nice. I also like the fact that the selector is a little bit flatter here. That is pretty nice. The icon selector switch sticks up a little bit more. And with the Pittsburgh, they do have this little indentation here for the selector switch so that it won't protrude as much. But I have to say, I do like the look of the DieHard better than the Pittsburgh without that little indentation there. It is nicer just having a flat face like that. The DieHard and the Pittsburgh both have their names laser etched in the heads, whereas the icon and the gear wrench have it engraved. So it does lend to the premium look of these. And of course, you're paying more for these two on the end here. So I think that goes with the look there. One thing I do want to point out is I'm not crazy about this grip. It's got some interesting edges here on the grip, if y'all can see that. I wouldn't necessarily call these sharp edges, but it's got kind of a hexagon-like shape here. So it's not uncomfortable. I don't know. I prefer something more rounded. Like the Pittsburgh grip is pretty good. I love the icon grip. I think the icon grip is one of my favorite grips. But I really do like the fact that it's got this hole here so you can hang it. That is nice. None of the other ratchets have that feature. And when comparing the handles, the Pittsburgh and the DieHard handles are pretty close to the same length. I think the DieHard's a little bit longer, so there's more handle to grab onto if you've got big hands. That's a plus. The handle is a pretty decent length, but it's not as thick. So if you guys prefer smaller grips, this one's gonna fit the bill there. The icon grip is bigger. So that is something to think about if that is something that you weigh your decision on. So when we're talking about overall length, the DieHard comes in at 13¼ inches, and that's compared to the Pittsburgh at 14 inches. The icon is also at 14 inches. These are pretty much exactly the same length, these two right here. And then the gear wrench is the longest. This one's 15½ inches. So that's definitely got some length on it there. Let's take a look at the measurements of the head here. So we've got the head coming in at 32.67 or so, 32.7. And then the width here is a little over 15.2. And in comparison, the width of the head on the Pittsburgh is 32.3 or thereabout. And then this way we've got 13.2 or just a little bit less. The icon's going to be thinner this way. We've got 31.12, but I think the icon's going to be a little bit thicker going this way. 14.2 or so going this way. And the gear wrench head's the thinnest here, 27.3 millimeters, and then 13.2, a little over 13.2. So the gear wrench is definitely going to be the smallest and easiest to fit in tight spaces. I feel like the DieHard and the Pittsburgh look the closest. And when you're looking at them on their profile, you can see that the DieHard is a lot thicker, especially here on the neck there. I feel like that's definitely going to make a difference as far as getting into some tighter spaces. I'm going to take a look at how the sockets fit. These are Capri sockets that I've got. So up close here, I do like the way the socket fits on here. Not a whole lot of socket slop on there. Fits pretty good on the Pittsburgh. We've done icon and gear wrench comparisons, but the kind of with the Capri, there is a little bit of space there. Not much of a problem. That's super smooth. The gear wrench tends to have the most socket slot. But I feel like these are all really smooth. But man, the DieHard just has the most back drag of all of these. Oh, that icon is beautiful. And so is a gear wrench. These are so smooth. The Pittsburgh is smooth too, but the mechanism, it just sounds louder. It feels okay. It's just there is more back drag. I haven't opened this up yet, so I don't know if it needs to be lubricated, or maybe we need to trim the pawl springs or something. Kind of help with that back drag a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, so with the tooth count, okay. So in order, the 120 XP gear wrench with the 60 teeth and the dual pawls, it's a 3-degree arc swing. The gear wrench 120 XP, you've got 60 teeth, and that dual pawl gives you 120 positions here. So you barely have to turn the ratchet before you get to the next tooth. So that's a 3-degree arc swing. The DieHard sits next at 4 degrees with the 90 teeth here. Then you've got the Icon. It's got 80 teeth, so this gives you a 4.5-degree arc swing. And then the Pittsburgh comes in last place at 72 teeth. You've got a 5-degree arc swing. It's not that big of a difference, but I mean, if you're in a tight spot, that will make a big difference. I am curious. I want to take measurements here of this direction switch. So for the DieHard, the selector switch adds 2 millimeters, and for the Icon, the selector switch adds 3 millimeters. Gear wrench and the DieHard, there's only a 2 millimeter difference with that selector switch, so that's pretty good. All right, so let's go do a field test, see how this actually works. I'm also going to try out this rolling creeper. Just put it on the ground and it rolls. You roll on top of it pretty much. See how this works. Oh yeah. Nice. Dude, this is awesome. So I got a couple 10 millimeter bolts to take off here. I'm not going to take off the whole cover here. Just these little access doors to the oil drain plug and the oil filter. I don't need such a big ratchet for this, but we are testing this DieHard 3/8 ratchet. So let's check this out. Yeah, now I'm getting into some issues with the back drag. See, it's just going back and forth, not doing much here, and it's still pretty tight. So that's a problem. Yeah, I do not like that. Like I have to hold the socket in order to get it to turn after a certain point. All right, I got one of these things. Never tried this before. Wow, it works better than I expected. Woo-wee! Hell yeah. All right, let's get this little guy off here. Yeah, the back drag is an issue. I'm not loving that. I'm wondering if maybe I can trim the pawl spring or something to make that better, but back drag is something that it's not a problem till it's a problem, you know what I mean? I like my ratchets to be smooth. I literally can't start making any progress on this until this is in there a good ways, which is really annoying to me. So while I get this a little tighter, I'm going to use my Koken. See how, yeah, you see how the Koken works? Okay, so my mic died in the middle of recording this. So this is editing Holly here, but basically I kept having to switch back and forth between the DieHard and my Koken ratchet because the back drag was just too bad on the DieHard to get the bolts started. But once I eventually got the bolts going, the DieHard was able to finish it up, no problem, of course. So yeah, the back drag is really my only complaint with this ratchet. Otherwise, it's a pretty good ratchet. It wasn't uncomfortable or anything. I was a little bit curious about how that grip would feel, but yeah, I didn't mind it at all. This thing was awesome. Highly recommend. So was this. Woo! Thanks for watching. Hit that like button, and I will catch y'all next time. Stay happy, healthy, and wealthy.